I'm here to talk to you about NetScaler this morning. How good is virtual? A bit about me, achieving my self-promotion, my blog address, Twitter handle and stuff like that.
Don't have ours.
What I'm going to talk about this morning, how good is virtual? I mean, Alex gave me this title and said, oh, you know, can you just do a presentation? I said, well, yeah, give me a topic and I'll present on it. He says, oh, do something on NetScaler VPX. How real is virtual? I mean, I have no idea what that means. This is how I've interpreted that in terms of, like, you know, how useful are VPXs. So I'm going to look at what a VPX is, the various options you have, so a bit about the range, a bit about the licensing, how they're licensed, some kind of lab use cases, how you can use them in a lab environment, and some real-world use cases as well. I have the other giveaway at the end. That is slightly cheating because it's not really, but I don't think it's something. So, a bit of background on VPXs. Okay, time for you guys to wake up. Who's actually downloaded and played with a NetScaler VPX? Just over half. Who uses them in a production environment? Good.
All people.
Okay, and who's kind of have no idea what a NetScaler is or what a VPX is? I guess that's a good start. So reasonably technical then. So VPX is an appliance, a downloadable piece of software from Citrix. Support all major hypervisors. So there's a flavour for each type of hypervisor. I couldn't find a Zen server logo, so I'm just like Zen resistance.
Yeah, well, I guess that later on.
The download for VMware is actually for ESX. It doesn't actually import out the box onto the VMware workstation, but you can get it to run. Henry's he's got a nice blog article on how to actually get it working on a VMware workstation. But it does work. For some reason, the OBF files isn't compatible with VMware's workstation. So you need to run a little tool called OBF Converter. So, talk about some licensing. Various different editions and flavours of VPX. There are some free ones. There's a VPX Express. So that's free to anyone. They said it's a perpetual license, but you have to renew it every 12 months. So yeah, you can have it forever, but you need to keep going back to my Citrix and get a new license to keep every 12 months. VPX 1000 evaluation. So that gives you the kind of full feature stuff. VPX Express is quite cut down. You can do it's only standard features. I'll cover those features in the next slide. Partners, if you're a Citrix partner, you can get 5 free VPX 1000. So the 1000s is the 1 gigabit device, and they get 5 platinum VPXs. And if you're already a NetScaler customer, so you own physical NetScaler boxes, so MPX, or that should be SDX, not SPX. It will give you there's a VPX developer edition. So this is kind of like stuff you can give to your developers to test their code against before being put into production against the real physical devices. And the commercial range, so the things you can go and buy from a disti or a partner. VPX 10. So again, the number denotes the throughput. So they're exactly the same software. It's just a license key change that throttles back the device based on throughput. And there's 4 different 10, 200, 1,000, 3,000. So the VPX Express is I actually think it's even more restricted than 10. 5 megabits. So the Express was 5 megabits. Citrix did actually say once that they were going to increase that to 10, but they never seemed to do that. I can't find any evidence of them ever doing that. There was a blog post about a year ago saying, yeah, we're VPX Express, 10 megabits, go for it. It never seemed to happen, so that's a bit strange. And then you've got the editions. So the editions are standard NetScaler editions, standard, enterprise, and platinum. So standard has got quite a lot in it actually. Load balancing, content switching server, database load balancing, TCP optimizations, Active Gateway, Enterprise Edition. SCF. It made sense when I wrote it.
And rewrite it.
And rewrite responses. Content forwarding, content
Filter.
content filtering. Paying attention, well done. That was just a test for the audience. Then you've got the enterprise and the platinum. So your platinum stuff, you've got things like the branch repeater, clients in there, application firewall, the edge side for the NetScaler stuff, so the monitoring your back-end applications through edge side. So there's lots of choice. Again, it's just a different license, same VPX software that you download for all of these. NetScaler licensing guide for distributors is 43 pages. So it's a complex area because there's a whole bunch of upgrades you can do. You can upgrade from certain ones to certain ones, from certain devices to other devices, and certain licenses to other editions. And there's add-on licenses. There's add-on licenses for clustering in NetScaler 10. Add-on license. Add-on licenses for. You can actually add some of these features as well. So you can just say, oh yeah, I want the enterprise, but I actually want to add on some of the platinum features. And you can kind of buy them quick pack. So it's a massive matrix. And it's quite complicated. So Access Gateway Enterprise Edition on NetScaler. This is probably one of the more popular reasons for people getting NetScalers these days. Can run in two different modes of operation. Basic mode, that's the standard ICA SSL proxy, as I call it. A lot of people call it, oh, it's ICA SSL VPX. It's not. It's just an ICA SSL proxy, really. To get the full SSL VPN, where you're sending all your network traffic from the client, you need smart access. So that's the platform license and a universal license. And that gives you things like EPA scans as well to check things on your client device and the client-less access stuff. So Citrix will give you a basic mode license when you buy the VPX, when you buy physical NetScaler as well. To get hold of the universal license, either you buy something like Zen Desktop Platinum Edition, and then that will include the license for Access Gateway. They also give you a universal license when you're buying the new Cloud Gateway Enterprise Edition. Because again, that's CCU-based licensing, and you'll give you a smart access. This is CCU-based licensing. When you buy this platform license, it's just 10,000 users on the NetScaler. It sounds great, but there are some catches. So, MPX is the physical devices VPX. So, I'm going to throw this out to the audience. There's a bit of a David and Goliath thing going on. Advantages of VPXs. Any suggestions for the room?
Any benefit that the virtual hypervisor provides, really. I mean, you've got to fail over to different hosts. You've got,
So flexibility.
yeah.
What I've got is license mobility. So if you're using a VPX over here, and actually you close down that branch, you can just power off that VM, reuse the license somewhere else, spin it up, give it the same MAC address, and reuse the license. That's quite good. So you can do that with a physical device, and you can put it in a box, get a courier, send it over, take your days and days.
That was the stuff requiring SSL terminations. They're CPU intensive. So that VPX might not fit the
So Citrix is bad at being a hardware company, so when you have a power supply fail, it takes absolutely ages if you've got a physical one.
A few years ago, I was of the opinion that Citrix would actually get out of the whole hardware thing altogether. They don't seem to have gone down that route. Maybe this is kind of taking longer than they expected.
It's got to be the future of SDX, surely.
Yeah, I think they just say, well, we're going to give the hardware side, so you can use whoever you've got, or if you want a better kit, go to Dell, go to HP, and they will sell you a hardware suitable for SDX. It must be a real pain in logistics to handle warranties and replacement. All that stuff. So no physical hardware on VPX, so they're quite easy to implement. If you've already got a hypervisor, you can just download the appliance, spin it up. It takes you about 10 minutes. Download the license key, very quick. MPXs, you've got logistics, shipping, talking to the data center guys, finding rack space, cabling, patching. It's a good deal. On the other side, performance. The MPXs are built to to do this job. I'll cover more about performance in the next slide. Another downside of VPXs, they are susceptible to your hypervisor issues. So if you bung one on a highly contended hypervisor, then your NetScaler ain't going to perform well. So you're susceptible to networking, storage, CPU contention, because there's obviously other stuff running on that hypervisor. So don't overcommit, especially when you've got a NetScaler. Give it the resources it needs. VPX is a dual core. You can't really give them any extra cores. They're limited to 2 cores. But obviously you can spin it more if you want to. I'll talk about SDX. SDX is kind of best of both worlds, maybe. You've got physical tier, but then you've got Citrix own hypervisors, you've got Zen server on top. This is my kind of SDX equation. You've got an NPX, which is the physical device, plus Zen server, plus any number of, well, not any number, VPXs, so between 5 and 40. I think the tiers are, you start with 5, then there's a 20 edition, and then you can go up to 40, so you can just add more. Great when you've got, for example, a multi-zone environment, so you've got different security zones and you want to split them, put SSL VPN between them all. Quite good for that. Obviously, the usual service provider type scenarios where you've got multiple tenants and they all want their own VPXs. This is kind of stuff that software are doing now. I was quite surprised in the NetScaler 10 there's actually an icon specifically for them to sync with the software NetScaler. But they're not cheap, SDX. Again, range of devices. You can convert an NPX into an SDX as well. You can wipe the NetScaler firmware, put it on Zen server, and then start to add your VPXs. The big difference between having lots of VPXs on your own hypervisor and having lots of VPXs in SDX, of course, is the SSL hardware in the device. And that makes a massive difference to scalability. Especially if you're doing things like ActiveScape, because it's all SSL termination. I'll cover that. So let's look at some lab use cases. So quite useful in the lab. Give them a free. So again, one of the popular ones, you're in lab. You want to access it from anywhere. Set up access gateway on VPX. So done. You can access it over the internet. Point it at your STA. Point it at your PC. Very popular. Anyone use a VPX in a lab this way? VPX appliance gives you 5 concurrent smart access licenses. So it's normally 5 for lab usage. Brilliant.
Is there still that restriction on key length in the VPX Express? It was first released, where you couldn't have SSL sets over a certain key length, but it was 512K.
Well, as soon as you install the Express license, it's...
So it's just if you've got the box with no license and you've got the Express license on it, it fixes that SSL.
Yes, even the VPX Express, you can spin up the appliance without license at all. So you obviously don't need a way to upload the license. So you do need to still activate the free license, and that will then turn on the basic feature set of the standard edition. So this is kind of a typical lab setup. I think this diagram from the Citrix documentation. So you probably don't have a DMZ in the lab. You may do if you're lucky, but I certainly don't. And you've got some internal stuff on an internal network interface. You can use a NetScaler obviously to access it via access gateway we talked about. Another one I use is an RDP reverse proxy. So if I've got a whole bunch of kit sitting in an internal network, I don't want to expose RDP to the internet or all those. I also don't want to give them all public internet IP addresses because they're quite hard to get these days because we're running out. So if I have a NetScaler device, I can set up various RDP proxies that point to my internal servers. I can do that on a single IP address and just use different ports. So I set up multiple V servers in the NetScaler. So I've got one 3390, 3391, and you just keep using different ports. And then so you can then RDP on the same IP and get to a whole range of different servers in the back end. That's quite useful. Internet proxy, again, so if you've got a lab of Windows 7 VMs that you're testing stuff on, and you actually want to get out to the internet from that, you can set the NetScaler up to actually be a kind of proxy server. It's quite useful. The way you do that is just set up a reverse NAT. So under your networking, under routes, there's an RNAT table, RNAT tab, sorry, and then you can just link the two. So you can link your private network and give it a NAT IP. So any traffic that comes in will then be natted and sent out to the internet. Obviously, you need to make sure your routes are set up, etc., etc. So this is the kind of NetScaler dual R mode. So I've got one NIC on the public internet. I've got another NIC on the private lab network. And put the NetScaler's private IP address as the default gateway on the DHCP server. So all your IP addresses get dished out. Default gateway hits the NetScaler and gets into the internet. Works a treat. And very easy to serve. And it's free. Why would you do it? And this is how you configure it. My solution. I was going to do all this live, but I got on the internet. Easily, not going to do it. Get some nice screenshots essentially. So when you add it, actually what network you want to put in, these are the available IP addresses. Literally just like putting your private network in there, click on the public IP address, add, close. Okay. You can apply some accolade to it if you really want to. Right, real world VPXs. This is kind of my own experience. I'm sure there's more examples of this. So, Windows and the DMZ killer. So everyone can think, oh, you know, when you put the servers in the DMZ and the old kind of CSG secure gateway and web interface, there's kind of a, you know, you talk to your security guys and they're kind of nervous about putting Windows servers in the DMZ. And NetScaler is a great way to get rid of that. Obviously, you've got Access Gateway Enterprise Edition, which means you can replace CSG, Citrix Secure Gateway. Now you can do web interface on NetScaler as well, so that gets rid of another Windows server you might have in the DMZ. And as we all know, NetScaler is a super hardened BSD appliance. It's relatively secure. You might have some interesting conversations about hypervisors in DMZ. I know one of my clients, still won't allow resets in DMZ. Especially if you're spanning kind of zones, so you've got certain legs of it on the internal network and certain legs of it on the DMZ network. Can't do that. That's a popular use case. Anyone doing that with VPX? Yeah. Anyone doing web interface? Yeah. Well, that's a few limitations. Things like smart card, no chance. You need IIS to do things like Kerberos and smart card. So the web interface in NetScaler really is the kind of the old web interface of Unix Java product, just ported across inside the Java machine. What about the evil Palmer slide? $1 million. So, as aware, I was quite lucky actually. I was trying to find a slide that says, okay, well, we have a certain performance limitation of a VPX. About 300 users, performance falls off a cliff. So again,
that's not really the case.
Not really the case.
No.
In what respect?
It's really only an issue for all those users doing full SSL VPN, not just ICO.
Yeah. So Citrix will support the VPX up to 300 SSL VPN connections, but that's full client network over an SSL. Can do more. Sorry?
Per instance?
That is per instance, per VPX. Once in NetScaler 10, you now cluster these. It gives you some options. However, there's going to be coming to a point where you can keep adding VPXs like this. The zero. So the VPX device itself is only twin core, 4 gig. So Citrix supported up to 300 users. You may get more, but if you really want to push the boundaries, then you have problems. So, well, you're overloading the clients. Should really buy a VPX. There's going to be a point where you should stop doing this and just buy a physical. I think the sweet spot for pricing wise is about 6. So obviously you might have a big hypervisor with lots of cores, lots of memory, and these guys might max out their twin vCPUs, 300 users, 500 users, whatever it is. So you can just add another one, and then with the NetScaler 10 you can cluster them so they appear as a single NetScaler. so you can kind of scale out in that respect. Again, on the same hot, because this guy isn't that busy. It's only the 2 vCPUs which will be busy, but take the CPU in there. So you can do that. But again, after about 6, cost-wise and performance, you may just buy it. And these guys are about 2K sale price, 2K a pop. After about 6, NPX is about $12,000. Another useful feature that I've used quite a bit, service monitoring. So you've got the load balancing, and you can attach monitors to those load balance VIPs. Even if you're not actually using the NetScaler to do any load balancing, you can still set up monitors. I think that's quite useful to actually monitoring your internal ZAP and ZNO stuff. The reason being is Citrix have put quite a lot of effort into providing custom monitors that actually monitor their own back-end services. So there's a custom monitor for STA, custom monitor for DDC, XML, etc. And so far, I have found sort of Perl scripts that you can use on other devices that will kind of monitor XML gateway, but it's just a tick box drop down away you go. So when you're selecting creating a monitor, a whole bunch of stuff. Even like web interfaces, a web interface standard and a web interface advanced or extended. And you actually give that a user ID. You can actually do a login to an interface and check that you can actually log in and the site's operational. So from that perspective, it's brilliant because you can actually say, can my users actually log in? XML service, okay, I know the port's up, and most load balancing tools and monitoring tools will just look at if the ports are available. But this, you actually give it an application and a user and say, is it enumerating that application for this user? Word of caution on that. If you have a published application that you're using as a monitor in NetScaler, especially on an XML service, don't disable it in the farm. What will happen is all your NetScalers will see that XML service as being offline, and as they're all offline, all your XML services will go, the service down. I've had that happen before.
Do you know the impact of the monitors?
It's quite light. It's no greater impact than just one user.
I'm curious. It's just a curiosity. I mean, I don't know if I've never heard any speculation or any kind of published document on if this monitor takes X amount of CPU.
Your impact on the NetScaler or impact
on the NetScaler, right? So if I'm adding a lot of stuff to it and I'm doing a lot of XML queries, that has some impact.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of stuff you're going to run every 10 seconds? Or
No, I think it's like CPU memory. What's the...
Yeah,
if you make really complex queries, asking it to... Then I think it's that infamous negligible unless you do something daft.
That's what
just an HTTP request.
But it's not when you start passing username, passwords, and there's some automatic clicking that has to happen. There's a little bit more behind it at that point, right? I think it takes every 6 seconds. Yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah, the default monitors is every 5 seconds, but I mean, it's very, very easy to change.
I would say low.
Is it in a service provider? You're talking about thousands of machines.
If everyone's doing their... I want every single thing monitored.
Poor guy wants to ask a question.
Okay, sorry.
The application for the XML service monitor becomes some sort of single point of failure.
Yep.
I have created separate published apps with large banners on it. Don't touch it because
You know,
it's
disable,
separate in this case.
Something else I've done as well is create one per, so you're using, for example, 2 production sites, one for DR, one for fail, or active maybe. I'll create one for each, because then, at least someone does mess up and disable. They've only killed half your infrastructure, but not the entire lot, which is the example I saw.
Consider publishing it on the phone that nobody has access to except for the top farm administrator, and that way once it's in there, nobody can faff around.
Use a delegated admin in the farm to... I'm not a fan of giving strict administrators full admins anyway, because I don't believe most of them need it, so I usually lock that down to break glass, and then all the strict admins then get kind of a special, this is what you need to do your job, and not break shit.
So basically, think it through.
Yeah.
Very useful, but can be very dangerous. So again, this is in the VPX Express Edition. It's free. A neat little thing I do is I create a custom service called My Farm. And what you can then do is you can create monitors for your critical back-end infrastructure. So things like your web interface. for XML servers, for security authority servers. Again, even if you're not using the NetScaler for load balancing, it's quite useful. And then you bind 3 monitors to a single service. So all those 3 monitors have to be green for this to show green. And then what you can then do is say, well, so if one SDA, so you've got, say, 4 SDA servers or 4 web interface servers, if one fails, that service will still be up because it's in a load balance group. So everything will still be green. So if you've only got 2 SDAs and both fail, that will go to red, and then this will go to red. So it's kind of a good high-level view of your infrastructure and everything working. And then you can use this to make decisions for things like GSLB. So, is all my back end in this location okay? If so, yeah, I can let users use this site. If something fails, or maybe I've lost all the web interface servers on this site, everything else is running, my NetScaler is fine. So normally, GSLB will say, okay, well, I'm going to still send users to that. But if you bind it to something like this, and you do lose all your web interface servers, this will flip offline. GSLB will wake up and say, actually, they want to go over there instead. The servers are there are healthy. Right, demo 1, real world stuff. Web cache. I'll do this live again. I've got a nice video. So this is the infrastructure we have in this particular set. So we've got a pair of VPXs. We've got some web servers in the back end. The whole thing running on Zen Server 6. The separate VPXs are bound to separate Zen Server 6 hosts. And we've got a bit of a load test VM is going to hit this infrastructure. So, play the video, as I say. It's only 3 minutes and it's quite quick, so I'm going to talk through it, so pay attention. One more set of screen. Right, let's just zoom in so that you can't see it all. So, this is my Apache box back end. This is my load test VM here. So this is Apache at the moment. It's pretty quiet. There's 10 idle worker threads, so there's not a lot happening on this server. Only 2 current requests. So it's nice and quiet. It's kind of steady state. This is the integrated cache view on the NetScaler. Again, you can see 5, 6 requests coming in. It's pretty quiet. So let's start the load test. I'm using the Apache benchmark tool, AB, to go into the Apache distribution on Linux. Very useful. I'm hitting the Uscript website, which is a real-world site that's sitting behind this. I'm hitting it with 100 concurrent connections and overall about 10,000 connections altogether. So you see now, Apache is getting quite busy. There's no idle workers left. So it's now frantically creating more processes to try and handle all these requests. Again, 0 idle workers. So if someone hit this web server now, they're just going to be waiting because there's no free workers to service it. And that's not good. You don't want that in a production website. It's still scaling up, 64, 68, so it's trying to handle these 100 concurrent requests that are coming in like this. This is without caching it, by the way. So the first test is, it's going through the NetScaler, but I'm not caching it. So I've told the NetScaler, don't offer this from the cache. So you can see now, performance is a little bit higher than it was, but these are all cache misses. Okay? So the green line is total requests, orange line is misses. So these are all misses, so these aren't being served in the cache, which is not what you want, but this is for illustration purposes.
Yeah, was this 11 o'clock at night?
It was. It's time. So this is my Zen Server VM. So I've now maxed out the CPU on that web server. Again, that's not good because that's then impacting other things on that. There's mail servers on there and other stuff. So not a good place to be. And both, it's a dual vCPU server, and both cores are 100%. And this is only 100 concurrent users. So it's now serving about 136 concurrent requests. Stop the performance test. And immediately you'll see we've now got about 100 odd processes all kind of completing, finishing up. And this will slowly drop down, so this has gone right back to 0, and we've now got about 100 idle workers. They're all sitting there in case something else happens. I think they close down after about 10-15 seconds. So these will now start to decrease. Obviously they're all consuming memory and CPU on the Linux box. So it just takes about a minute for the server to kind of go for that. You see down here the load has gone back to 0. There we go. So it's not good. You don't really want this happening when you get a burst of traffic. So if you look at the time of request, about 5 milliseconds for each request. So the 200 requests per second. So that's without the cache. Now let's turn on the cache. Okay. So again, we've got pretty idle on here, not much happening. Our CPU is now back to 0. Can't wait to go to bed because it's 11 o'clock. I've got to record this damn video because I know there'll be no internet. Right, let's kick off the Apache benchmark tool again. This time we're going to cache the page. Initially what happened was we got 100 requests come in because it's sending 100 concurrent requests. Initially the page isn't cached. So Apache gets 100 requests for this page. Oh, I need to spin up lots of workers. And then what happens is the NetScaler then says, oh, I'm delivering this in the cache, I'll cache it in the cache. All future requests are not going to pass into the back end and we'll deliver it out of the cache. So now all these workers are idle and they're all being spun down. My load test is whizzing through the load here. So this is the orange one. So these are cache hits, cache hits. So now we're delivering about 2,500 caches per second. I don't know if you remember the previous one, we're about 200. So we're delivering hits much quicker than we were the misses, obviously. Our Linux CPU is pretty much flat, and this is completed so quickly, I'll have to run it again. Time per request, 0.4 milliseconds. So the one was 4.9 milliseconds, this is 0.4 milliseconds. So you're doing 10% of the time to deliver from the cache. Still getting over the network. It's just coming straight back. So I'm going to run the benchmark again because it completed so quickly that it only took about 15 seconds. As you can see here, 2 requests. Obviously, if you scale this up to hundreds of websites, the NetScaler cache, you can quite be granular about what you cache and what you don't and how long it keeps stuff in the cache for. You can specify it on file type when it refreshes, etc. We'll do for 10 minutes. So the next demo 2. So I thought, wouldn't we do it good if we say, okay, we can put NetScalers in pairs, as HA pairs, or we maybe just have one and say, well, actually, I'm going to Z motion to RAM. So rather than having 2 and one flows to the other one, if something bad happens on our hardware, I'm actually going to move the NetScaler somewhere else. So I thought about, well, how does that compare in terms of like failover and experience? So again, same scenario, same load test. But what I'm going to do now is actually going to fail one of the NetScalers with the HA pair. I'm just going to shut it down, cause a an expected HA failover event. And then the other scenario, I actually take one NetScaler and turn motion that onto a different physical host, all whilst running this load test, so hitting it with 100 concurrent requests per second. And we'll see what the difference is. One video. I love these basic codes.
Awesome. Can you fill screen?
Yeah. So, on here we've got the, I'll put the heartbeat. So this is the heartbeat between the two VPXs. Showing when you're live, yeah, everything's good. And we're on the same load test. I'm actually running it for longer. I need to actually do it for, I think, 1 million iterations, because it was just taking, it was so quick coming out of the cache that I had to up the factor of the number of tests it did. So here we've got some load, that's what we need. You see, request per second is about 2,000. If you look at the CPU, it's not too bad, 23%. Getting nearly 2,000 requests a second. So we're doing a throughput of around 120 megabits per second. Again, this is just a dual vCPU VPX. So orange line here is CPU, memory, and then we've got the requests. So let's break this NetScaler. Right. So this is our HA pair, currently doing absolutely nothing. And then this is the NetScaler that we're looking at here. So as you can see, it's now got a little bit of load on it. What I'm going to do is just going to shut it down from within the Zen Center, so it's a kind of a bit of a dirty shutdown. Right, this is our HA pair we're looking at now. So our heartbeats are here. This is the load, and it's going to do nothing because its primary is doing all the load. So as that other one is shutting down, eventually we'll see a heartbeat failure here. So it's like, oh my god, my other half's gone, I better take over. And instantly we'll see all the load has been transferred across onto this VPX. And you can see the event here is float in the system. Everything's carrying quite nicely. So the heartbeat's gone because our other VPX is offline. We're still handling about the same load. All works a treat. Let's try the website. Yep, great. No one would know. Then let's try and break it even more. Zen motion network. Oh, this is our load test, by the way. So this is still running. Hasn't timed out, hasn't failed. Still quite happily churning, giving it some load. I'll just pick on the user group website. So if I did break that, then never mind. And this is our HA NetScaler. So you can see now I've got a bit of load on here. So I'm now going to migrate it onto the other host. So the other one's offline. I'm now going to Zen motion it across. Everything continues to work. For now. So now we've only got two. I don't really have that much load on the back end in terms of the number of sites, but as you get into the bigger hosting environments, again, that's especially clustering, so you can just bung it into the NetScaler, say join the cluster, and it will download its configuration from the other members of the cluster. So for bigger hosting environments, I think that's quite a big deal, because it's quite hard to manage HA pairs because you have to remember to sync the configuration, and certain things don't sync, and SSL certificates don't always sync, and sometimes you have to manually sync, and then if you bring them up in the wrong order, or if you upgrade one in the wrong order, you can blow away your configuration. And, it was a little bit of a nightmare. Right, so this is migrated across. The load has suddenly dropped. It's like, oh, what just happened? Something's broken. And our load test has timed out. Let's restart it. It's like, well, was that just a glitch, or what's happening? So restarted, okay. This is still our secondary, still handling the traffic. So does the website still work? Yeah, fine. So the failover with a ZenMotion wasn't quite as smooth as a HA pair. It's hitting lots and lots of transactions. Obviously, Apache benchmark is quite sensitive to things like timeouts, whereas maybe a real-world user would just hit F5 or try the site again, and it would work. So maybe this is a very, very sensitive test. I don't know. But it does demonstrate that HA pair absolutely flawless. ZenMotioning it from one host to the other wasn't quite as smooth. So I'm now going to ZenMotion it back. I'm just going to finish on how to crash a NetScaler. So I've ZenMotioned it one way. I'm going to ZenMotion it back just to check that it still works. It goes back to where it was. Also while running the load test. So now it's moved across hosts. It's unsuspending it. I thought it'd be quicker actually. I don't really do a lot of ZenMotioning, but it seems to take a long time. So again, the time down. So as the NetScaler came up, my performance goes time down. So it wasn't a glitch. It's actually it does it every time. So I did run this 4 or 5 times just to make sure that wasn't a one-off glitch. And ZenMotioning it does cause the benchmarking tool to time up. I'm guessing that I don't know actually what the thresholds is on the tool, but it obviously just misses whatever the timeout settings are. In Apache benchmark, you can't adjust the timeout on the HTTP. So I've spun up my second. So this is the one I killed, and I've just powered it back on, and now something bad has happened. I was like, oh, what am I doing? I'll just power it back on. And if you look at the console, there's a nice error saying, panic, ah! And it's doing a memory dump. That is how to do a NetScaler. I thought, well, as it's broken, all my website's down now, what's going on? So I did a quick look in the console to see what's going on. Let's check the HA status. So this is on the device. Now we've got unknown. But again, the primary's still up. So even though that box has died and it's dumping its memory and hogging my CPUs. Let's try the website. Yeah, all good, brilliant. So again, HA pair has kind of handled that eventuality, even though one of the NetScalers has died. So that was actually quite an unplanned event happening. Okay, a few minutes of questions or competition. For prize. I kind of cheated on the most funny actually. I thought, what can I try? As it's a NetScaler VPX session, the prize is a